Grace, we've decided your services are no longer needed.
What? Sir, I don't understand.
You'll need to leave today. Today?
After everything I've done for this
The
family?
decision has already been made.
They fired her from the mansion without even listening to her. But no one knew she would return in a way that would silence everyone inside that house. And when she stepped out of that car, everything changed. The morning started like any other morning in the Harrison mansion. The kind of morning where everything looked perfect from the outside, but inside, silence carried weight. The floors were already shining before sunrise. The curtains were already pulled open by invisible hands. Security men stood at their posts like statues that never blinked. And in the middle of all this quiet luxury, Grace moved through the kitchen. She had been doing this for 7 years. 7 long years of waking up before everyone else, sleeping after everyone else, and existing in a space where she was seen but never truly noticed. To them, she was the maid, not a person with dreams, not someone with a past, just someone who cleaned, served, and disappeared into the background of their wealthy lives. But that morning felt different. Grace noticed it the moment she stepped into the kitchen. No one greeted her, not even the junior staff who usually exchanged small morning words. The atmosphere was heavy, almost rehearsed, like something had already been decided before she even woke up. She continued her work quietly, wiping the marble counters, preparing the trays, moving from room to room with practiced silence. But her hands were not as steady as usual. There was a strange pressure in the air, the kind that makes even normal sounds feel louder than they should be. At exactly 10:14 a.m., one of the house assistants came to her door. "The madam wants you in the living room," she said, avoiding eye contact. Grace paused for a moment. That sentence alone was enough to tighten her chest. She had been called many times before, but never like this. Never with that tone. She removed her apron slowly, folded it neatly, and walked through the long corridor of the mansion. Each step echoed slightly, as if the house itself was warning her. When she entered the living room, she saw the entire family seated. The master of the house sat at the center, his face unreadable. The madam sat beside him, arms crossed, expression cold. 2 of their adult children were also present, unusually quiet. Even the security guard stood closer than necessary. Grace immediately knew this was not a normal conversation. "You called for me, sir," she said softly. The master didn't respond immediately. He looked at her for a long moment, as if measuring something invisible. Then finally he spoke. "We don't need your services anymore." Grace blinked, unsure she had heard correctly. "I'm sorry. Sir?" The madam leaned forward slightly, her voice sharper. "You are fired. Today. Pack your things and leave the house immediately." For a few seconds, Grace did not move. It felt unreal. 7 years reduced to 1 sentence. 7 years of loyalty, silence, discipline, and invisible labor erased without explanation. "Please," she said carefully, trying to keep her voice steady. "If I did something wrong, tell me. I can fix it. I've always done my work properly." The room did not react. No one defended her. No one even looked uncomfortable. That silence hurt more than the decision itself. The master finally spoke again, colder this time. "This is not a discussion." And with that, the decision became final. A security guard stepped slightly forward, not aggressively but firmly enough to signal that she had no place left in the room. Grace lowered her eyes. Something inside her tightened, but she did not cry. Not there. Not in front of them. She turned and walked out of the living room, through the hallway she had cleaned countless times, past the paintings she had dusted so many mornings, past doors she had never been allowed to enter. When she reached the small staff room at the back of the mansion, she stood still for a moment. This room was small compared to everything else in the house. A narrow bed, a small wardrobe, a window that barely showed the outside world. This was where she had lived her life for 7 years, a life built inside someone else's world. She slowly began packing her belongings. Not many things, a few clothes, a few personal items, nothing that truly reflected who she was outside this place, because they had never cared to know. As she packed, her mind replayed memories she had tried not to think about. Moments where she was ignored. Moments where she was spoken to without respect. Moments where she had quietly accepted less than she deserved because she believed stability was better than uncertainty. But now, even that stability was gone. Within an hour, she was ready. A small bag held everything she owned. As she walked toward the front gate, the mansion felt different. It no longer felt like a workplace. It felt like a place that had erased her. The gates stood tall and silent, the same gates she had opened and closed every day for years. But now, she was on the other side of them. The security guard opened the gate without looking at her. No farewell, no acknowledgement, just completion of a task. As she stepped out, the gate closed behind her with a heavy metallic sound that echoed in her chest more than in the air. And just like that, she was outside. Alone. The mansion continued its life behind her as if nothing had happened. Cars still arrived, staff still moved, the world she had served kept spinning without her. Grace stood on the road for a long time, unsure where to go. The sun was bright, but she felt cold. Not from weather, but from realization. She had given years of her life to a place that could erase her in seconds. Slowly, she began walking. No destination, just movement. Days passed. Grace lived in small, rented rooms, each one worse than the last. She took whatever work she could find, cleaning small offices, helping in kitchens, washing clothes for strangers. Life became harder, but something inside her was changing. The silence she once accepted was turning into questions. Why had they really fired her? There had been no warning, no complaint, no discussion, just removal. That question stayed with her every night. Weeks turned into months. Grace stopped thinking like someone trying to survive and started thinking like someone trying to understand. She observed people differently, how they spoke, how they made decisions, how power moved quietly through rooms. She noticed patterns she had never paid attention to before. At a small catering job one evening, she met an older man who noticed her careful way of working. He watched her arrange plates with precision and asked, "You've done this kind of work for a long time?" She hesitated, then said, "Yes." He nodded slowly. "You don't stay where you start. You move forward eventually." That sentence stayed with her longer than expected. Something shifted that day, not immediately, but deeply. Grace began learning. She saved money. She met people. She listened more than she spoke. She slowly stepped into spaces she had never been allowed into before. And over time, she became someone different. Not loud, not flashy, but no longer powerless. Years passed. And one day she saw something that brought everything back. The mansion was still there, still active, still hosting events. The same family still living their lives as if nothing had ever changed, as if she had never existed. She closed her phone slowly, and for the first time since leaving, she did not feel pain. She felt clarity. She picked up her phone and made one call. "Prepare the car," she said calmly. "We are going back." The day she returned, the mansion gates looked exactly the same, but everything else felt different. A black luxury car pulled up slowly in front of the entrance. The security guards noticed immediately. This was not a normal visitor. The engine stopped. Silence followed. Then the door opened. Grace stepped out. No apron, no fear, no hesitation, just presence. One of the guards looked at her closely, confused by something familiar he could not place. Inside the mansion, news spread quickly that someone had arrived who claimed they were once part of the household. The master frowned. "Send them away," he said at first. But something about the message stopped him. "She said you used to know her," the guard added. That sentence created a pause in the room. Slowly, reluctantly, they decided to see who it was. When Grace walked through the doors of the mansion, everything stopped. Conversations ended mid-sentence. Movement froze. Even the sound of footsteps disappeared. The madam's glass slipped slightly from her hand before she caught it. The master stood still, staring at her as if his mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. Because they recognized her. But they could not understand her. The woman they had thrown away without a second thought was standing in the center of their world again. And she was no longer the same. Grace looked around the room slowly, taking in every face that once ignored her existence. Then she spoke calmly. "You don't remember me properly," she said. The silence that followed was deeper than before. The master tried to speak. "We didn't think—" But she raised her hand gently, stopping him. "I didn't come here for explanations." Her voice was steady, controlled, certain. She took one step forward. "I came here because you once believed I was nothing." No one interrupted her. Not because they agreed, but because they could not. She turned slightly, looking at the house she once served. "And now you are connected to what I became after you removed me from your life." The words hung in the air like something irreversible. The madam whispered, "What are you saying?" Grace turned back to her. "I'm saying you didn't end my story when you fired me." A long silence followed. Not dramatic, not loud, just heavy, because everyone in that room understood something at the same time. The maid they erased had not disappeared. She had transformed, and now she stood in the same house not as someone begging for her place back, but as proof that she had never needed them to begin with. Slowly, Grace turned toward the door. No anger, no revenge, just completion. As she walked out of the mansion, no one stopped her. Not because they didn't want to, but because they realized they had no reason left to. And behind her, the house that once defined her life remained frozen. Not in power, but in realization that the person they dismissed had already moved beyond them long before she ever returned. After Grace turns to leave, have the master stop her. "Grace, wait." For the first time in 7 years, he says her name. Grace pauses. The room is silent. The master lowers his eyes and says, "I should have listened to you. We should have treated you better. What we did was wrong." The madam, who once couldn't even look at her, struggles to speak. "I'm sorry." Grace studies them for a moment. Not with anger, not with pride, just with peace. Then she says, "For years I thought being fired was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But now I understand it was the beginning of the life I was meant to live." She smiles gently. "I forgive you." And with those words, the weight she had carried for years finally leaves her shoulders. She walks away, not because she has won against them, but because she no longer needs anything from them. The gates close behind her one last time. This time, they don't feel like a prison door. They feel like freedom. Never measure a person's worth by their position in life. The people you overlook today may become the people you admire tomorrow. Respect costs nothing, but disrespect can reveal more about you than the person you mistreat. Life has a way of surprising those who judge others too quickly. Treat everyone with kindness because you never know who they may become. If you believe everyone deserves respect, no matter their status, leave a comment saying, "Respect everyone." And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Do you think Grace did the right thing by forgiving them? Let us know in the comments.